So Miguel, I have a really important question for you.
What's the question?
Have you ever had people ask you, is that anime when you're drawing in your sketchbook?
If I had a penny every time I get asked that, I'd be traveling the world now.
Would you describe your art style to be anime or semi-realism?
That question should be asked a lot because it brings a point to how we evolve our styles, right? Like, do we mimic the kind of art that we like, or do we just kind of roll with it and organically change over time? I like to think it's a little bit of both, just as with anything. I happen to work a job where we continued the tradition of what a cartoon originally was, which used to be political satire. That was the original definition of our cartoon. Nowadays, we call it caricatures because cartoon has become synonymous with animation. With caricatures, it's just meant to poke fun, usually at political figures or public figures, but now it's just been commercialized and anyone can have a caricature. My specific department deals with portraits, and that's like a whole other history. But overall, it's just meant to exaggerate the subject, and that's all what a cartoon was. Michelle here deals with animation, so she could tell me what exactly is animation as opposed to just a cartoon, or is there a difference?
Well, let me ask you, do you think SpongeBob SquarePants is a cartoon or an anime?
Well, according to the memes, it could also be an anime, but I think it's a cartoon. But what's your opinion?
Well, by definition, if you actually look up SpongeBob SquarePants, it's an animated TV series. In a way, it's not really labeled as a cartoon by definition on Wikipedia, but it is an animated cartoon series is what I think it should be considered as. And I think it's interesting that when you think of cartoons, you associate it a lot with children or kids entertainment. And that's totally like understandable because of like how media portrays cartoons and how society thinks cartoons, it's for kids. And it's weird because then you relate it to anime, which is a Japanese term for animation actually. Like it's literally came from the word animation. And so I think it's interesting now that when people, instead of using oh, is that a cartoon that's for kids? They also start using the word anime like as if, oh, that's just for kids. And I think it's a very misleading and misunderstood terminology because it's way more than that. Anime isn't just for kids, it's also for a wide range of audiences. Miguel and I are bringing this up because as artists, we do look at cartoons and animation as an art form. And sometimes when we hear people comment that it's only for kids, it kind of downplays its role in society. Animation cartoons have been much more influential than you think. I mean, look at Disney, look at Pixar, look at like those big animation studios. And then going to the East Coast, the East, anime is a dominant form of media for consumption. And so Miguel and I just have like a beef with people who think it's all childish, but it's just like any other art form that you really take it seriously. You really use it to express yourself.
I think what the issue is, in my opinion, is that we often, like when it comes to sports, you could see the grit being played on screen. But when it comes to animation or anything artistic, it's really hard seeing the effort because you don't see it. You only see the final result. And so I guess that's what makes it hard for people to understand and empathize. You know, everybody knows Disney, but not everyone knows how much work is being put into animation. So with sports, it's easy because you see them play. It's the same thing when they're practicing. But with art, you don't see the process that easily. You just see the final result. And that's where the disconnect is. So that's why we're trying to encourage people, like if you find your children doodling, don't stop them, encourage them. So I guess that's the message. This has been a public announcement. Yeah.
Obviously, as a kid, I actually started drawing because of anime, and I think this might be uncommon, but I actually started off with an anime called Zatch Bell, not Naruto or Sailor Moon, but Zatch Bell is an anime that I actually grew up as a kid, and it's got your typical big eye characters and very expressive personalities. And then after Such Bell, that's when I discovered Naruto. I think Naruto is your entryway into the anime world, so understandably I got into that as well. Anime, I think it was just a way for me to have it's an entry into that world of how to draw a character or a person. Obviously, when you start drawing based on like anime characters, you already just kind of assume this is how the arm is going to look or how the pose is going to be. When you have art teachers who tell you like, oh, don't draw anime, you're either just copying or you don't understand anatomy, they're kind of right in that sense, but at the same time, I think there's this idea that art teachers, that's all they know about anime, but there's so much more in this world of Japanese style of drawing, because anime obviously didn't just pop out nowhere. It started with manga, which is the almost like an Eastern form of cartoons in Japan.
Right.
And
comic books.
Yeah, and as such, with 2D drawings, there's this thing called sequential art. So those different frames and paneling, so you have a story. It's no different of how animation starts, is that you have a storyboard and then you animate the movements to get to that next frame. So everything is pretty much connected, and that's my point with that.
There is effort involved that a lot of westernized, we're living in the West, a lot of teachers didn't understand before, is that, yeah, like you said, it didn't pop out from anywhere. There was a history, and with that history, there are processes that are involved that took a lot of practice. And so when you tell a kid, hey, don't draw anime, you're essentially telling them, don't learn. And that's the point that I think needs to be addressed, is again, let them draw, let them figure it out. There's always going to be mistakes. And when you look back at those mistakes, you try to figure out, okay, how did these artists learn? Because I can bet you most of these artists learn traditionally. They learn through the fundamentals. It's just over time, because of commercialization and popularity, they had to appeal and figure out their own style, and that's how it came about. So you always start somewhere, and there's always going to be a learning curve. So don't stop them from trying new things.